So my name is Anna. I am from Finland, but have lived all over the world in a bunch of different countries in Europe and Asia, and now based in the United States. I'm the founder and CEO of a startup called Zvook. We are a platform for podcast advertising, making it super easy for brands to find the most relevant podcasts and book host-read ads with just a few clicks, literally as easy as shopping on Amazon. And obviously, subsequently, we're helping content creators to monetize their content. And I'm very passionate about storytelling, anything that has to do with storytelling, because I'm such a big believer in the power of a compelling story that can move us, educate us, entertain us, teach us something. And so I'm just really, really excited to be working in the space where we can help, the audio creators, the audio storytellers, to match with brands and companies that align with their content, align with their values, and help everyone share better stories to the audience that matters. Hard work, definitely one. I believe that luck comes to people who work really hard, and so I am a very big believer that you can, create your own luck. And I think working hard, regardless, and I think, looking back at my own life, I can see how much, what I have today and where I am today is also about just perseverance and doing things against all odds. We in Finland have this concept called sisu, which basically means like doing things against all odds. It's a very Finnish saying. And so I feel I definitely have seen that a lot in my own life. And so I think hard work is something that, is one of my values, but also I really, really appreciate in others. Fairness and being true, like authenticity, I guess, right? And this is, I think, something that I think many people probably would say and agree, like, yes, that's a great thing. But I think it is surprisingly hard to actually be honest and authentic, especially in scenarios and situations that might be slightly conflicting or might actually lead to an outcome that in short term might not actually even be beneficial to you. But I'm a very big believer that in the long run, if you're true to who you are, regardless of the scenario, you will actually end up winning. And so that's kind of the second one. And third one, I guess, having fun. I think, life should be fun and you should be doing things that feel good. It can't always just be for the money or for someone else or because of whatever great purpose. Yes, all those things are great, but I think you need to enjoy it because if you don't, nothing else matters. You don't want to live a life where you look back and you're like, oh, that was like quite an exhausting journey. You really want to say, hey, I had a lot of fun. So I guess those three things. Yeah. I think my first dream job was to be a teacher. I think like very basic kind of thing. But I very quickly, I think as a kid, and I've told this story many times, but I was not someone who was actually playing a lot with dolls or Barbies or whatever. My favorite thing to play was The Office. Like, believe it or not, I had like a kid's, I think I was maybe 7 years old when I got like a kid's like fax machine. Where you could like send faxes. It was like a toy, and I loved it. I was like, I'm being so important. I didn't even know what a fax was. Like I didn't know what that whole concept of sitting at your desk and doing like what are all these people doing, but somehow it's always been a part of me. I've always wanted to somehow make a difference. So then very quickly, it kind of changed from maybe not a teacher, but maybe like somebody like a business person. And again, as a kid, I didn't really know what that was exactly, but I just knew that these were the people that made a difference. And then when I was a teenager, I kind of was for a period of time, I was thinking about getting into politics, and I did actually in my early 20s back in Finland. And then I kind of went back into, no, I think the business road is the one. Oh wow, like I think to to me, my inspiration, my parents have been a very big inspiration, and the way how they've done, like my dad's Finnish, my mom's Russian. So she's been an immigrant her, for a big part of her life. And even my dad, like they met back in Finland, and then they moved and when my whole family kind of started the life in Finland, it was really hard for them to kind of build everything from scratch. And the Finnish society is not always the most kind of warm and welcoming to people who are a little different, unfortunately, as many good things as there are in Finland. And so kind of seeing them build things again, like against all odds and with such integrity and with such like grace and such hard work. I think all of these values that I have really come from them. And now seeing them having achieved like their dreams and, living a nice life, it's very, very inspiring. And so I'm looking at them and I'm like, if they were able to do that, I can literally do anything. Um, for female role models, there are so many. And actually, this just reminds me of like how much more I think we should be writing and talking about like amazing kick-ass like business leaders and women leaders. Um, I very much, I mean, I'm inspired by, so for example, politicians like Christine Lagarde. Well, she's not really, she used to be a politician. She is now the head of the International Monetary Fund and has been for many, many years. Very kick-ass, very direct, and I just, love a lot of her principles. She's very, very smart, so I love her. From like the business world, I mean, um, you know, um, um, oh, I'm blanking on her name. The founder of Canva, Melanie Perkins, her. So yeah, I mean, she's obviously someone who I think has inspired a lot of people, and kind of being this, I think the real role model and example of perseverance and facing so many rejections and then kind of coming off at the top. And then Whitney Hurd, who is the founder of Bumble and who just actually IPO'd, and kind of her story is super, super interesting because she was a part of a Tinder team and then kind of there was like a huge blowout and she got fired and whatever, started like a competing app that became super, super successful and then, you know, took it public and had a kid, I think, in between. Like, I mean, she's awesome. So, and I've listened to a lot of interviews and I like agree with her on many things. So, just a few examples. Listen, I mean, I think what it doesn't tell anything about that. I think it tells something about how the media and society actually portrays women founders. And it's always like this separate category. It's like female founders is a different category. Like who's looking at that? It's the same thing as like female soccer or female sports or like female founders. They just go to this bucket that people are like, yeah, I think I've heard of what's her name? And listen, I'm even embarrassed that I blanked because I've like like listened to her interviews and like read the interviews and even I didn't remember, right? Like I think that it says something also about how the media is portraying, women. And I don't know why it seems to the media that it's somehow like less exciting to talk about, you know, women founders. And to be very honest, I think that we have to be way bolder and braver going out there and not just portraying women as female founders. I think we need to talk about founders. We need to talk about CEOs. Like, why is it that like a lot of female founders are being asked to be on panels about female entrepreneurship? No, we want to be on panels on AI and tech and leadership and business and all that stuff. And I think it is changing, but I think it's not really changing fast enough. And so I just think that yeah, we ourselves as women have to also establish ourselves a certain way. So next time someone asks a woman, hey, who's your favorite founder or who's your favorite CEO? You name a woman, like tell everybody who that is. And it shouldn't be a gender thing. It should be just like, this is my favorite entrepreneur, this is my favorite role model, regardless. So I think we also can do a part of that job. Honestly, probably buildings book. Really, because we are now like 2 years old, two plus, and we started from scratch and we kind of, went up. We've raised a little bit of pre-seed money, kind of got people on board, started building from nothing. My CTO and co-founder like built the whole platform and just figuring shit out. And in retrospect, even now, if I told you about the past 2 years, I could make it sound super cool, or I could make it sound like like you don't want nothing to do with it, right? So I think that's the power of the storytelling, but it's also sometimes a little bit deceiving. So in all reality though, like building a startup is really hard, and we all know that like a very small percentage of startups become successful. So I think the hardest part, of course, like we can talk about all the different bits, bells and whistles, but really the hardest part is to not give up, to believe enough in yourself to when it's really, really hard, you're like, no, there's enough signals for me to continue and keep going. There's something in here. I believe in myself. That's really the hardest part. I hope it's gonna be, I mean, it's already rewarding, but I really hope that it's gonna be even more rewarding. Looking back at it, be like, I didn't give up. No, this is, listen, I think actually success is an attitude. I don't think that it is some kind of a tick mark. And I've heard a lot of founders that have, for example, built a startup and sold it. They still feel like, I don't know if I've made it. Whitney, like the Bumble's founder, I just listened to one of her interviews, and somebody says, yeah, well, you're so successful. She's like, am I? And they're like, yeah, you pretty much are the freaking definition of success. And she's like, oh, I guess I am. Um, and I don't think that's like a women thing or whatever. I just think that a lot of people, it's hard for you to even understand what you're supposed to measure against. And I think we should be measuring against our own definitions of what that success is. For example, I don't know, if you have a dyslexia and you get into university, that might be like success for you. That's a big deal. For a lot of other people, it's not a big deal. Like you can get in, right? So you need to really measure it against your own bars and your own goals. And at the end of the day, I do believe that success is an attitude. If you say, yes, I've achieved a lot of things. I love my life. I'm happy with where I am, and I still have goals to achieve. I think that's what you should measure it against. And I do think also that it is important to have some concrete milestones for yourself to say, so that you can reach that milestone and feel like, okay, I've reached something. Otherwise, if it's too like, I just want to be happy and give back to the world, it's like, when do you know when you've quote unquote given back to the world? So having something very tangible, like I want to one day for my on the professional side, I would love to share a stage with Spotify's founder Daniel Ek and talk about the future of audio and where the audio is going, and really having, being there on stage recognized as one of the leaders in the space. For me, that would be huge. That's one of my very concrete things, that I hope I'll be ticking off the list. I've never had a mentor. I have tried to get a mentor when I was a little, younger, kind of like in the early stages of my career. I attended some mentoring programs, and somehow weirdly, I had one woman that was sort of supposed to be my mentor, but it kind of turned around. Like I was mentoring her. She was like so inspired by me, and she like would talk for ever. And I kind of realized like, okay, this is not working. At least it's not really working for my benefit. Like it's cool to catch up, but this is not it. And then I guess I sort of realized, for me, I think probably what works best is just organically talking to people that I somehow resonate with. It doesn't always have to be like one person who's, here's my mentor. It's very official. If you find one and it works for you, amazing. But if it doesn't, you can still have, there are tons of people around that you can grab a coffee with or have a conversation or have someone introduce you. And it can be even one session, even 1 hour, right? Can be life changing and can be very inspiring, if you can connect with a person on a particular level. So these kinds of scenarios I've had a lot. I don't really consider any one person, but definitely have gotten bits and pieces. And then honestly, my peers, like a few founders that are also building businesses that we've become really good friends with, and we're like venting about stuff on a daily basis, or cheering each other up. I think that's been almost the best kind of mentoring, because it's very like peer to peer. I think the biggest stereotype probably somehow that we have these quote unquote soft skills
Mhm.
that make us somehow emotional. I mean, I I honestly think this is the most also frustrating stereotype that you can have about women. Uh, but I think it is very prevailing. It's like women are like emotional. We make decisions based on emotions. Like we can't like fire someone or say fuck or like or negotiate or like stand our ground. I don't know why that is. And you know, I think that it is true that we might have, in a good way, we might have certain qualities and abilities to have certain kind of empathy, or maybe socially we're a little bit more alert. We're just because of the way how we think, it's not so straightforward. We kind of consider a lot of things. It can be a huge strength. And I think that now, in the recent, literally very recent years, even this year, we have seen a lot of examples in the business world, in the tech and startup world, of very poor leadership from guys that have raised a lot of money, millions and hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, have crashed their companies because of extremely poor leadership and just very, very poor values. And I think now, I hope investors in the business world is going to be like, okay, hang on. Maybe there's something else. Maybe there's some other qualities that we need from a good leader than just like going out there and being this charismatic visionary. Like maybe there are some other things that we should look at. And I think that in that particular conversation, women will have a lot to give. We can bring something new to to the company culture. So it's no longer these like tech bros, but it's actually something a little bit more empathetic and humane. And that does not mean soft. That just means good, respectful. And at the end of the day, I think that it has a huge impact on the bottom line, because when you have a less turnover, when people enjoy working with you, when they feel like they're listened to and respected, they're not going to leave. So you have less turnover, better results, and all that. So I think that we're on the path of changing that stereotype. Just fucking do it. Don't overthink it. I think that the biggest disservice that we're doing to ourselves as women is we oftentimes overthink it too much. It's like, what, how would I do this? But I'm a woman. How should I be building a business as a female? How should I negotiate as a female? It's like, no, just don't distinguish yourself in those ways, because I think that it can also be detrimental if it goes too far. And I have seen and been a part of a lot of different women like communities and panels and events. And the one thing that I see is there's just so much, like being a woman is so at the center of it. And sure, yes, we're different and there are different challenges and we acknowledge those. But at the end of the day, if you're good, you're good. If you're going to make someone a lot of money, you're going to make someone a lot of money. If you're going to build $1 billion business, you're going to do it. And it's you as a founder. So I would just say don't overthink it. Don't think how it's going to be different just because you're a woman. Because there's also, it can also be a good thing, right? Going into a room full of men, I think, is an advantage. You stand out, right? And in my experience, actually, people want to talk to you because they're interested and be like, well, what does this woman have to say? What does this girl have to say? Like, what is this female founder? Whatever. But it doesn't matter because I am getting a platform. I'm standing out. So you can flip the thinking around, and I think that will be something that I would encourage everyone to do. That is a very, very good question. Checking your own biases is always good. I, Again, I just think that, I mean, I guess a sense of fairness is very difficult to measure, but really kind of checking your biases, right? When you're recruiting, I think women should be held to exactly the same standards. I'm not saying like you should hire a woman and kind of just because she's a woman or whatever, but I would say like checking your own biases and coming to the table not being surprised because a woman is good or excellent or better than someone, right? Like just if you have that thought, just be like, why am I surprised about this, right? Um, so yeah, I understand that it's a vague thing to say like check your bias, but really just every time you have a thought of like, oh, I'm not sure if she can do whatever, be like, is this because she's a woman? Like because yeah, most likely she is going to be better and she is going to blow your mind, but it's not because she's a woman, right? So you should not be surprised about that. Someone, I think it was like one of the MBA courses I took, this was many years ago, where we had a course about it, and someone said like empowerment by definition means you have to have the power in order to empower someone else. By definition, if quote unquote you don't have the power, you can't empower someone, right? Because it's like giving the power to someone else, which is why I think that it is so important that we ourselves make sure that we are going, building, becoming successful, speaking up, being vocal, being ourselves, being authentic selves, so we can, and in the way I see it, empowering is like inspiring. In this context, to me, that's what it is, right? So me building a company, going out there talking about these things, being vocal, say my opinions, being direct, like and negotiating and saying no if I need to. That to me is empowerment because I am showing that this can be done. I am claiming that power myself, which means that I'm able to hopefully pave the way and kind of pass it on to anyone else who's coming, behind or next to me. I wouldn't really do differently. I don't believe in regret. And maybe this wasn't really a question about regret so much as it is maybe about learnings, which I understand. There's definitely a lot of learnings, I think, from that perspective. I mean, just maybe to make it easier on myself, I wouldn't do necessarily anything differently, but I would believe in myself even more, and I would definitely be way more confident in a lot of things that I've done. It's funny because I feel like I'm someone who doesn't per se lack confidence by nature, but still there are so many moments you're going through, you're like, oh, I don't know. Somebody says something, gives some feedback. You're like, oh, maybe they're right. Actually, you know what? Oh, this is stupid. Oh, now and it's like, no, none of that thought process back and forth. Because I think externally people probably don't know that you're going through all these things and you might come across a certain way, but internally we all have these thought processes. And I would just say, like, have less of those. Just do it's not that scary, like just do it. And something goes wrong, you do it again. But that whole back and forth in your head, it's really hard. It is really hard. So when I think about my industry, so be it audio or be it tech or be it startups, I see women as leaders. I see women as leading the companies that are shaping the future of, let's say, even the audio industry, right? The AI, the just generally the tech world. And I've always said this, I am kind of, I guess I go under this umbrella of like women in tech, and oftentimes it is being referred to women in tech as like coders, and we need more people to go in STEM and coding and becoming engineers, and that's great. I support that wholeheartedly. But in addition to that, I want to encourage women to think about getting into tech, even when you're not technical. I'm not technical. I've never coded. I actually couldn't even do it. That's not for me. I'm not, that's not something that I would find fun and interesting. So I don't want to do it, but I understand it. And I understand a lot of other things, right? I understand communication, I understand sales, I understand marketing, I understand the storytelling, I understand the leadership bit. So I am excited to lead a tech company, and I think I want to see more women do that. I want to see more women not just code or work for tech companies. I want women to lead them. We need that leadership. We need to show that there can be great products that are being built by men and women and just phenomenal company cultures and phenomenal leadership. And if you combine the two, oh, we're gonna see in the next decade amazing companies with amazing company cultures, and I'm really looking forward to being a part of that, shaping that, and then seeing more women be a part of it. So something I really love telling myself, and this is a quote by I don't know if like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or somebody, I think, said this. Um, but the quote goes, limits, just like fears, are just illusions. And I love it. I feel like, yes, very oftentimes we take, when if we're scared, we take that as something very concrete that prevents us from doing things. But actually, it's just an illusion. It's just a feeling. And that's something I keep telling myself whenever it's hard or I feel a certain type of way. I'm like, it's just a feeling. I can decide to be happy. I can decide to be, to feel good about something. So if I feel scared, it's just a feeling. It's actually not that scary. And so yeah, that's something that I live by.